2009, a small game development studio named Blue Mammoth Games was founded by Hi-Rez Studios, which specialized in MMOs and competitive online games. Blue Mammoth Games, also known as BMG for short, would go on to create a 2D platformer fighting game in a similar style to the popular game franchise Smash Brothers. This game was eventually known famous as Brawlhalla, which went on to spike interests and great memories throughout its current years in the fighting game community. But how did such a small indie-like game achieve its greatness rapidly over time, building a great community of inspiring gamers and content creators, even going as far as having their own merchandise and distinguish its own unique identity from its predecessor, which was once considered a ripoff? Well, my friends, this is the legendary story of the rise of Brawlhalla.
Welcome to Brawlhalla.
Brawlhalla charts to way back in late April of 2014, when Steam's early access had begun, and the beta then came about in November of 2015. However, it was still an early access and a far cry from a masterpiece, because the game mostly looked and ran like this. Then things were looking great towards the end of its second year in 2015, finally hitting that 4-figure peak plays a month mark and hitting an average player count of around 2,000 to 3,000. Unfortunately, the latest Smash Brothers game had released during the time and was known as Super Smash Brothers for Wii U, and while there weren't many legends in the game yet, it didn't quite have a distinct difference from Smash. And even if you didn't have a Wii U at the time, everyone who played Brawl during these 2 years had come from or compared it heavily to Smash. But then came 2016. The game was still only available on PC, but then BMG hosted their official tournaments in May. Things were looking great, and a total of 27 playable legends were now available. Plus, new maps and emotes were added too, but gameplay wise, this was still way too early for competitive, as this was when Axe Nair still killed early.
You serious?
The famous first ever Brawlhalla World Champion was announced, and it was none other than LDZ. And the first ever 2v2 World Champions were Daiku and Twilight. Towards the end of 2016, the community grew even bigger, with creators like Lucian Sword and Skills WG gaining thousands of views in their videos, which helped exposure to the new game. The numbers of the player base on Steam towards the end of the year only further solidified the future of Brawlhalla. By 2017, Brawlhalla's World Championship, aka BCX, had officially been confirmed to be an annual event with an increased prize pool split between 1v1 and 2v2. The winners were none other than LDZ again, and for 2v2 was Boomy and Remy. The game finally hit that 5-figure mark for peak players a month, so the game was looking very healthy as it became more refined and robust, with its own vast unique set of legends to play. And on 17th October, the game finally became free to play on PlayStation 4. But the biggest rise at this point of the year was the implementation of Dash. It was a big game changer, and one which was undoubtedly needed. It increased the pace of the game, making it not only more entertainable to play, but to watch too, right in time for BCX of that year. But then the massive leap happened. The game was looking more polished, and the BCX match in Winners Finals was the third most viewed Brawlhalla video of all time. But why? Well, the winner of 1v1's tournament was none other than Sandstorm, aka Stephen Myers. And no, he is not related to that Myers. The casuals were getting more and more hyped about the game because of the clips from the highlight reel of Scythe. Towards the second half of the year, the peak players every month increased from 12,000 to 16,000 on just Steam alone. That's right, because this was the year the game also released on Xbox One and Nintendo Switch free to play, with crossplay added too. Probably because Ubisoft acquired BMG at this time as well in March, so with the free marketing of content creators on sites like YouTube and the game being quick to access on every platform for free, plus the addition of Rayman and taking up less than 2 GB of storage, there was literally no reason to not pick it up, and at the very least play every once in a while to try it out. And then there was 2019. Sandstorm opened the eyes to everyone to the hidden potential of Cannon, so much that it had to get reworked and nerfed at the same time almost a year later. The weapon was like a smaller, more fun version of Lance, which would take you for a ride. No joke, one wrong dodge and you would get hit by a guaranteed 4-hit combo. Even if you never even watched tournament play before, it was still intriguing to see the best of the best using this odd weapon. As more content creators for the game rose up, the exposure for the game really took part for the game's huge rise. However, that time did not last, as a torrential rain swept by like a storm. The pandemic was both a blessing and a curse to most people, but to the gamers, it meant no more offline face-to-face tournaments, springing upon the memes of gamers not touching grass. Most see this time as the downfall of Brawlhalla, and when it was at its peak, not because of the tournaments being all online, but because the developers actually took things a step too far. It was clear that they too noticed all the attention people liked, with clips of people like Sandstorm and Castlix, with Scythe and Lance and Cannon, so they made a weapon so complex, with high kill rate, and look as incredible as possible. It was known as the Gay Sword. I mean the Great Sword.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
It was game breaking, especially with those on higher FPS. It was basically a grounded sword on steroids. Heck, it almost single-handedly killed the game. It looked cool, but gameplay-wise was just beyond unbalanced. Not many wanted to compete in the online BCX. While it didn't stop the player count from increasing, the community was definitely frustrated. The only positive highlight of the year was the Battle Pass introduction in May 2020. It costed around $7.99 and you would get a whole bunch of cosmetics. It was a steal. It was bound to happen at one point with games like Black Ops 4, Realm Royale, Apex, and Rocket League all copying the Battle Pass scheme from Fortnite. One would think that because this was the 5th year anniversary, all would be good. But you thought wrong. If this was a rise and fall video, it would be a bit more unforgiving. But even with all the unfortunate negatives this year had to offer, Brawlhalla has yet to come close to falling from grace. So how did Brawlhalla go from rising up to a steady standstill? Well, by the time 2021 came about, things still weren't looking good tournament wise. With everything still being online, the content creators were still going strong though, with crazy concept ideas and just overall a chill good time. There was something to be entertained by. On top of that, both the 3rd and 4th battle passes were incredible and kept the community hyped. Lots of fan art and soundtracks spreading around really was incredible. In October 27th, they announced official merchandise as well. So towards the end of the year, a new world champion made his mark. And then there's the present year, 2022. Not much hasn't changed yet, but everything is still relatively the same as 2021. Nothing too great to determine the downfall of Brawlhalla, but a slower rise is definitely a better phrase to use. The game is still fun, even if the core gameplay hasn't changed since 2017's Dash. Less content in terms of legends being added has definitely been brought up in recent conversations though. As for Brawlhalla Twitter, well, to be fair, Twitter in general hasn't been the greatest recently, so let's just not go there. There was an issue at a time with the pro players being a little concerned about the sound changes and newest Street Fighter crossovers being slightly paid to win. Hopefully that situation's been fixed now. Nothing is as bad as like it was back in 2020, which most would consider downright killed everyone's motivation to play. And if that truly is the worst time in the game's history, then the game won't die unless they don't update it ever again, because the devs have shown time and time again that they do care a lot about the game. If something is game breaking, they are not afraid to fix it as soon as possible. Numbers wise, the game is still doing well. And that is the legendary story of the rise of Brawlhalla.